Please welcome to the stage Madeline Clark, Retool Product Marketing, and Sean Allen, Retool Head of Product Marketing.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back from lunch. So good to see you all here in the SFJAZZ Center. We're so excited to kick off the afternoon sessions with you all. And in honor of being here, if there are any musicians in the house, what we're going to do this afternoon is a little variation on some themes. First, we're going to talk more about going from concept to completion. Then we'll talk a little bit more about the next generation of builders and bring us home with Agentic Future. So thank you for your attention, and I'm so excited to start session one. Sean, all yours.
Awesome, let's do it. All right, audience participation time. We want to see a show of hands for those of you who have built a cool prototype in the last month or two. Get you, there we are. Okay, maybe even outside of Retool. All right, it's okay, we get it. It's taken us a minute. All right, now, how many of those hands that are hopefully still in the air, sorry, we're about to lose effect, get those hands back in the air. Cool, all right, now how many of those hands actually shipped it to an audience outside of themselves or their team, and it's actually being used? And IT and security know about it? All right, awesome. That's what we're here to talk about today, right? The gap between a thing I built and a thing that everybody's getting great utility out of.
We know we have an explosion of creativity happening right now. AI is putting the power to build in everyone's hands. But if we're honest, most of those brilliant ideas die in the production tunnel. And we know that's not a tooling problem anymore. It's an architecture problem, and it's a governance problem. We built this amazing thing, and now it needs row-level security and audit logs and compliance approval problem.
So today, we're going to show you how you can close that gap from concept to completion, and we mean it literally. From the moment you have the idea to the moment a large group of people are getting advantage of your brilliance in production. Here's an obvious news flash. Something profound is happening in the world of app dev. How we build, what gets built, who's doing the building, are all growing and changing. We're standing at the beginning of a massive shift from app dev to app gen.
It's a really exciting, transformative time. But it also creates new challenges for getting real work done in the enterprise. What transformative actually means here is that your analyst who's been dreaming of a new inventory dashboard for 3 years can suddenly go build it in an afternoon by having a conversation.
Which is incredible.
Which is terrifying if you're in security.
Yeah, that's fair. Digital transformation isn't a buzzword in our industry for what, over a decade? Every year we're promised faster this, more that, smarter tools, quantum leaps. And you know what we've mostly gotten instead?
More complexity. Tool sprawl, data overwhelm, tech debt piling up like dirty dishes, governance chaos. And meanwhile, the demands just keep coming, right? New initiatives, tighter budgets, fewer resources, and everybody's boss, or their boss's boss, or their boss's boss's boss is asking, where's the innovation? Something has to give here. Something has to change with the way we're approaching this.
What if it didn't have to be that way? What if safely creating enterprise-grade software were as easy as creating a document? Ideas become working apps, not someday, but today. Business logic and process become part of a shared platform instead of being trapped in silos. AI mandates turned into motivators and catalysts for change, not unachievable goals and bureaucratic nightmares.
For that future, we do need a different approach. We need enterprise AI app gen.
In the last year, we've all seen and felt the power and hope of generative AI. It's like magic.
Don't say it.
But everybody's using that word for AI.
Exactly.
All right. It is limitless creativity. Now, anyone can describe an idea in natural language and instantly see it come to life as a prototype. A new tool, a custom workflow, a dream app, all sketched out with unprecedented speed. The barrier to prototyping never been lower. and it's unleashing individual potential in ways we never dreamed of.
But again, let's be honest with ourselves. How many of those amazing ideas and prototypes make it to production? The truth is, while the bar to build has all but disappeared, the bar to ship really hasn't moved.
There's an incredible amount of new energy driving individuals, especially about 50% of this crowd of domain experts, to build. AI tools in hand, clever ideas are turning into prototypes at blinding speed. And this rampant, though generally positive, energy brings a whole new layer of activity to the company. It's a massive burst of creative output.
And most of you have experienced that explosion in creative problem solving. You've seen the demos, you're tinkering, you might be building stuff yourself. But those prototypes hit a production tunnel, and not much makes it out the other side. Most of these ideas get stuck, not because they're bad ideas or because they're flawed, but because they run into a buzzsaw of governance realities. Security, data access and integrations, architectural standards, all of those things are what make up the walls of that tunnel that every prototype has to pass through. So extremely few of the really great ideas actually make it to broader usage. So what we have left is a massive anticipation of forward progress. We've got all this momentum brewing, but it hits a really narrow tunnel. And what that leads to is devastation of unmet promise.
And in this scenario, that's actually the best case. Because the likely outcome is that some of those tools without the proper foundations do escape, circumventing proper requirements. And then you find yourself with a whole new set of problems. Governance violations, compliance gaps, security holes. That's the paradox. The trends that we're discussing make individuals faster, but they actually slow teams down because they ignore or continually push against the guardrails that are required for company-wide acceleration.
Is anyone here vibing with the feeling of being crushed by your production tunnel? Having your ideas and dreams crushed? Or maybe just feeling like you had a burst of creative energy and it started bouncing off the walls of the tunnel. Raise your hands if you're feeling a little bit of pressure on that. I certainly am. There's almost a feeling of productivity overwhelm that happens when there's all of these ideas and apps being generated and a lot of energy being spent on it. When each app or idea tries to move from that creative spark phase to the let's get this in production phase, that feels even more stressful. And often that acceleration of more apps and more ideas and more experiments turns into more bugs, more integrations you have to chase down, more approval requests, more time, more spend in reviews. So the question then becomes, how do we collectively embrace this explosion of creativity without creating an explosion of tech debt and new security vulnerabilities? Because we've learned that you can't just say no to innovation. We don't want to, right? People are going to build. So together, let's find a way to harness that energy instead of blocking it. This is especially important when the definition of a developer, a builder, is expanding much faster than organizations are able to keep up with and realize.
We're not just talking about engineers anymore. Analysts are writing SQL dashboards, ops teams are automating processes, data scientists are turning notebooks into apps.
These are the domain experts solving the real problems. They understand the business context better than anyone, and they're using it to build real solutions.
But the reality is, if you want a world where these new builders can actually safely create, you can't just slap on a new point solution, nor can you just wave a magic wand and turn them into engineering prodigies, which is often what you feel like you need to do in order to understand the output from most of the AI-assisted tooling. You have to put secure innovation into everyone's hands.
Imagine an approach that doesn't just lead to generated code and new surface areas of vulnerability, but one that actually understands and codifies your architecture, your patterns, and your own constraints. Many of you in this room, representing the 10,000 customers who are already trusting us, have captured those guardrails and those constraints and requirements on top of the secure baseline of the Retool platform. And we know these aren't just generic security policies. They're your specific requirements embedded into the app and platform itself. For a healthcare company, that might mean something like every app inherits HIPAA-compliant logging. For a financial services firm, it looks something like transactions over a certain threshold trigger an approval workflow. And for a major global enterprise, maybe it means something like all apps respect regional data requirements. The point is, these aren't just restrictions or requirements you can bolt on later. They're integral to the way that you and everything you build have to operate.
If you build on a platform where every app automatically follows your architectural and security standards, you can drive structured innovation and scale institutional knowledge across your entire org. You get to expand the walls of this production tunnel from ideas and concepts to complete apps, flows, and agents. Now, every builder in your organization, and I mean every builder, can innovate safely. More sparks of creativity turn into working solutions in the hands of people who can and need to use them.
So today, we're proud and thrilled to continue diving into exactly how we can bring that to life with the first enterprise app gen platform built to effortlessly turn natural language, visual canvas, and code into production-ready software on your data, in your cloud, and secure by default. This is the way for all builders to turn problems into software that's instantly usable, deeply integrated, and aligned with your governance and data models. Welcome to the new Retool.
All right, enough vision. You guys want us to get into the product a little bit? That's what I thought. So do we.
All right, let's say your operations team needs a cash flow dashboard. You know the rough requirements, you know generally the shape of the app you want to build, so you hop into Retool because you know you want to build something fast. We have the connections we need to actually build this, and so let's just describe the app we actually want. I want to create a dash flow that shows the high-level KPIs, a timeline of upcoming payouts, and a list of any unpaid invoices. Now, what's great is we can just mention the resource we need. We're pulling data from Stripe. And since our finance team already set up the permissions in Stripe to make this usable for us and accessible to us, we can call it right within the prompt and start building on it immediately. Just like you've already built upon the resources that you have in Retool, they're here right for us. This matters because you don't have to continually recreate connections or fight with API keys. Any of the resources, the live resources and data you have, they're ready to go. The security and access to them has already been handled by the teams with the expertise to make that safe. So you can get started. Now, in the next step in our process, what do you guys notice? We stopped at a plan. We didn't barrel headlong into mountains and mountains of generated code, this like runaway train of generation, right? I love this. It actually paused and said, all right, let's figure out a plan together of everything that we need. So step one, what we saw actually generated a mock-up for us. It walked through the wireframe, pulled in what components we'd probably need, and then in step two, started defining the data model and dependencies that we need to actually build the app we want to see. Then in step three, Retool read out and created the implementation plan and all the next steps that we need to hit. So let's say we want to add titles to the containers, we want to add the UI components that are necessary, create some variables with our mock data, literally step by step. What we can do here is guarantee that the dashboard that we're about to create is actually going to meet the requirements we set out in the first place. That's pretty awesome. And we can stop and give additional guidance or make tweaks here anytime we'd like to. Why this matters is we can see the blueprint before any building actually begins, before we have to deal with that runaway train, and honestly, before we have to waste a lot of our own or others' time. We can stay in control from start to finish of this creation process. All right. Once we click go, let's see what happens. Now we have, in literal seconds, our full functional complete app right here. If you were paying attention, you might have seen that some of the resources and variables and components were already pulled in and automatically connected to that live Stripe data. So at the very top, we had our key metrics immediately pulled up to be the cash balance, the accounts, all of the metrics that matter to me and the ops team. The Gantt chart turned into a live timeline of the payouts that we need to see, and then the unpaid invoices table was pulled with real numbers. It even caught an error that we had in our data and fixed it for us. So what we have now is this fully functional app. We just described what we needed in plain language, didn't have to wrestle with the complexities of components, setting up or configuring anything. We just focused on the requirements of the app and not the implementation details, and let Retool do all the heavy lifting, fast and secure, on our real Stripe data. Now, if we want, let's say we want to make some different adjustments. Over here on the right, you can see you can just hide a column. If you don't want it anymore, if it's not critical to your application, you can just, boop, hide it. You can use the visual canvas there. You can use something natural that feels like it's in your workflow. You can also make live adjustments, anything that the UX will automatically adapt to. Some of these things may not matter to us. The point is, we can continue customizing within the app itself and see the live results immediately. What that gives us is the speed of generation, right? We've been able to literally generate an app, but the customization and finesse and flexibility to make it actually usable to us, to make this a piece of software that feels like it belongs to me and my team. And once you're in the app itself and you want to continue optimize, you can work in whatever mode makes the most sense for you. You can do the booping on the columns. You can move things visually. You can go code if you'd like to. All of that is available to you. Now let's say, all right, we've done a little bit of UX tweaking, but we actually need to add one more piece of functionality. So we hop back into the prompt. What we want to do is add a search by customer name. Now, we're going to see what's generated for us, and if we don't like what's available on the other side, we can just revert to the previous version. And again, what it's going to do for us is write the step-by-step process and give us a glimpse into everything that's happening behind the scenes. So step 3, actually going to update the table filter logic for us. We can see that that happened. And number 4, it even confirmed that the status filter worked for us. That's so great. We can see that it's already live and ready to go. And we check back in our app. There it is. It's live. Now, we know that this is the version that we wanted to add that filter to. But if we wanted to go back and forth and see the different versions that we've been creating, we're able to do that right in the UI as well. You can even have multiple threads of multiple changes going on at the same time. So it's so easy. The barrier to experiment is so much lower, and we can see these actual changes on real data in real time, side by side. That's fantastic. I can actually make the choices I'd like in the design of my app on real data in real time. So any of those choices would be based on real observation. I love that. You can experiment without breaking things, or sometimes more importantly, experiment with having to go back to square one every time you want to try something new. You can compare those options side by side with real data, and you can iterate as quickly as you think of the next experiment. Now, we spent a fair bit of time here in the setup in the building, but there's a lot more in creating an app and actually shipping it to production and making it usable by others. So let's take a look at access control and publishing the app itself. Once we're ready to publish, we create a group for our ops team. We give them ownership access to the dashboard that we just created. We confirm that all the right accounts are actually in that list. And then we publish. Now this is totally live. So once it's live, we can see that the search function works. We can play around, do a little testing ourselves. But the great thing is, once it's live, we can go ahead and monitor the usage with audit logs. We can take advantage of the governance features already in Retool to make sure that this is sustainable, governable, and scalable. Now, I'm going to stop myself there a little bit because our colleagues Todd and Gabriella are going to dive into, in much more depth, the specific capabilities around governance for us later this afternoon. But it's all to say, in a few minutes, we've gone from a blank canvas and a disconnected Stripe resource to a working app live with everything in one place, and we know it's safe and secure. This isn't a prototype. This isn't ephemeral, and it's not bogged down by bugs. It's not full of bloat. It's not shackled by scaffolding we never needed in the first place. This is simple and elegant and functional. It works.
All right, fantastic. Boop, thank you. We're going to go on to a set of vignettes that are going to dive a little bit deeper into specific capabilities, some of which Mads just showed and some of which are extensions. The first is going to be understanding apps and logic. And we're starting here because as internal builder communities grow, which is a trend that's going to be exploding as a result of this new dev mode, solving the problem of understanding existing apps and assets is a massive accelerant. Prompting can be incredibly useful outside of just the scope of creating and updating. It can also shorten that understanding gap. So I can simply ask a question like how an approval action works for a particular user and hang on to get an explanation, right? So the builder sees what triggers the approval, which operations launched as a result, and flow through the rest of the action, all in plain English for me to read. It's now incredibly easy for any builder, today's builder, tomorrow's builder, to pick up a tool that they know nothing about and get a credible level of information about it such that changes and updates become a confident breeze. This is such a necessary and key unlock as the number of builders continues to grow and the surface area for what's being created explodes. Next, we're going to talk about working with specific resources. Sometimes you don't want an LLM to guess. Sometimes you want to tell it precisely what you want to work with. So here, let's take a look at this prompt. A couple of things are going on. Second paragraph, talking about database access. I specify what the required fields are for what I'm doing, and then I specify some UI requirements. Give me a clean dashboard-style interface, put some quick filters at the top, and one that I want you to remember, which is sort a view of failed shipments. Now, all I need to do to specify what resource is just @mention it. You can see it does autocomplete. Here we grab Retool database and go. It takes all of this information and goes through and creates a plan. Pauses for a second, let's take a look at it. We've told it that we want to use this specific database. So what do you think it needs to do? It needs to go learn more about that database, what's in it, what schemas are available, et cetera. Then it's going to go off and design a clean dashboard-style interface with filters, et cetera, define a technical implementation plan, and then create detailed coding steps to actually go build the app. Let's let it keep going. First thing it did is that first step that we talked about. It went and inspected the database, knowing what was asked it for in the prompt, looking at what exists inside the database, and we had a hit. We already have a table called shipment data that has all of the things that we need, but Retool wants to learn a little bit more about it. So it's going to examine the shipment data, and the next thing it's going to do is check for failed shipments. Remember that was part of the prompt? Right, so it's going to dive in a little bit, but we've paused. Why have we paused? Because we've said always ask before you run the query. So it's waiting for a human to say, yep, that looks good to me, run it. Right? And with that deeper information, what comes back is creating SQL queries to fetch failed shipments, create JavaScript and SQL queries for different pieces of it, wiring filter components to all of these different parameters and results, configuring a whole slew of handlers, et cetera. To the Retool builders in the room, all of this sounds super familiar, right? These are the things that you have been doing manually for a while, using the first wave of Retool productivity unlock. This is the next one where it all happens automatically for you. In addition, it's already created the app structure, kind of hard to see, but there's a couple of boxes on the right-hand side. Continuing through the building process, now it's going to throw a slew of different UI components all the way through that structure that had already been created, adding in a number of data queries, action queries, and then full access to that resource, in this case Retool DB, is available both in the visual canvas as well as in code. All right, moving on to our third, editing an existing app. This one was hugely popular. During the early access period for this launch, we found universally that this was the main use case that people were interested in. Right? Whether the app was created through a prompt or was a years-old app, trusted and reliable that just needed a little bit of tuning, an update should really be a question away. right? So here we want to add an action specifically for changing a user status when an approval button is pressed. After thinking, a plan is formed and executed that focuses very specifically on the part of the app that we have honed in on. Now, this is a big deal because it is an incredibly frequent and annoying problem with a lot of the existing AI-assisted tooling that's out there in the market. If you don't get it right in one shot, when you come back for your second, your third, your fourth, your fifth, scoping what you want to change about the app is incredibly difficult. It just starts changing different surface areas that you're like, no, leave that alone, right? So being able to focus it is incredibly important. And to that end, while we didn't do it here, there's another capability. When you're in the visual canvas, you can select just a few things on that canvas and then say prompt on that, right? So you can focus in the scope of your prompt and of your change, which is just a hugely beneficial guardrail. So we continue through the plan. Next thing it's going to go do is create a JavaScript query that updates the status field to approve. It's going to set up those different event handlers, and then, very importantly, verify the approved functionality works as expected. Continuing through, it's going to wire those action handlers to the UI. So clicking approve now captures the selected ID. It opens a modal on confirm. It marks the items as approved, et cetera, et cetera. It's just telling you sometimes more than you want to know. But that's where you build that level of trust with what's going on, right? You can always inspect what it's going to do. Here, it tells you what it's done. When you click the approve action for any user in the table, it's going to do three things. It's going to open the approval modal, and then you can optionally add notes. It's going to update the user status to approved, and it's going to show a success notification. And if you look directly over the prompt box here, you'll see revert to version and create a release. If you don't like what it's done so far, throw it away. Revert back to before, modify your prompt. Also, if it's in the middle of thinking, you can stop it and say, hang on, here's some more context. Now take that and go, et cetera, et cetera. Or if it's time, I can create a release. I can snap a line to this and say, this is what I want. And as the change is implemented, we move to the visual canvas and test it out. We select a user, hit approved. There's that modal we were talking about. There's that notes field that we were talking about, et cetera, et cetera. Quick, simple, painless. All right, let's round out the vignettes that I'm going to go through with fun with themes. So experimenting with themes can be a large pain in the butt. It can also now be a little bit of fun. Earlier today, Abhishek showed a really quick flyby of turning an application or updating an application with a Spotify branding. We're going to dig into that a little bit more right now. One thing I'll point out here is that our question is, first a statement, don't move any components, right? So don't change any of the stuff that I like. Just focus your energy on, can you make the app look a little bit more like Spotify? The answer is yes, I can. I'm going to go out and learn what Spotify looks like as a brand and go ahead and make some changes to that app that you can see happening in real time. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you about it. I changed the backgrounds, I changed the text, I changed the accent, et cetera, et cetera. And something really cool happens. It doesn't just stop and say, all right, what do you want? It says, hey, a logical next step might be to do these things. What do you think? And we say, nah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the visual canvas and I'm going to make some changes because it's just easier over there. Like one of our awesome colleagues, Kirsten, she likes to explain it this way. If you've got your hand on the wall next to the switch, are you going to tell Alexa to turn the light on? So with that done, we're going to come back and ask the open-ended question, what else can we do to make this more Spotify branded? Retool, go off and sort it out. And boy, does it. Look at the list of things that come back, right? Green hover effects, subtle shadows, table enhancements. Could this screen be any taller? Status tags, smooth animations, sidebar layout, right? There's a whole ton of stuff that's going on there. Hey, builder, would you like me to go off and do that? Yeah, I really would. Proceed, right? So it's now going to go off and reason through all of those different pieces and how it actually should look on the app itself. Goes through and does that, and then comes back and tells me, I added a Spotify-inspired dark theme, rounded the filter containers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? It went through all of those things, told me what it did, so I don't just have to look at it and go, I wonder what happened. It's telling me what actually happened. Next, I'm like, yes, it asked me if I wanted to continue to polish. Polish away, I love what you've done so far. And here it's made some more changes. It's changed the title to white. It had this funky little music emoji there. And we're like, okay, calm down. I think you've gone a little bit too far. So we take a look at it. We're like, it's not really quite what I was looking for. It's time to hit the reject button. Right, let's revert to the last version that you saw before it started to do the more additional polish. We look at it and we're like, yeah, that's actually it. That's what I want. Poof. Had a little fun with theming, had a little fun with some of the other vignettes. It brings us to the next section, but what you got to see here was starting with an end-to-end, right? So starting from scratch, using Stripe, getting an app, and then a series of different vignettes that hopefully you can see how you would be weaving that into your organizations on a daily basis.
No, thank you so much, Sean. I know there's nothing quite like getting into the product. And so when you guys leave today and you're able to actually play around with it, a lot of this is going to feel so intuitive and exciting. It's going to be actually at your fingertips. I appreciate your attention as we walk through those. And so to close out this session, even though I know we love to get in the weeds, we're going to stand up, we're going to zoom back out a little bit, and we're going to talk about what this means for everyone. How do we connect the demo that we just did with kind of a grander shift in the vision? What this really means, everything we showed you, everything we've been talking about on stage today, and everything we're going to keep talking about on stage for the rest of the afternoon, is everything for an individual builder, for a team. For the individual builders, whether you're an engineer, an analyst, or an ops lead, what we showed you changes the way you work. A critical app or an automation is just a series of prompts and refinements away now. And all of the other motivated builders across your teams and across your companies that currently have to wait for IT to clear a ticket or for engineering to jump in with support, those folks and you go from blocked to unleashed. You can build custom dashboards in minutes. You can create workflows that actually mirror the processes you're using in real life instead of relying on other rigid SaaS tools. And that happens because the people responsible for scaling development, your platform and IT teams, and the people closest to the problems, the domain experts, we're finally building together. Platform teams get to design the guardrails. They assemble the trusted building blocks that we need. They enforce the data and security and design requirements and standards automatically for us. So everything is created on top of a secure, compliant platform and is production ready by default. Once that's set, the domain experts get to build on top of that foundation and figure out exactly the tools that they need and will use. They get to build those in plain language and an intuitive canvas, and they get to translate insight into action without waiting for a ticket to clear or a roadmap to land. The result of all of that is a new operating model. Now, best practices don't have to be enforced because they're just built in. Shadow tools stop appearing at the margins because the sanctioned ones are actually better. And IT no longer has to be the department of no. They can be the team that makes yes possible without sacrificing trust, compliance, or control. And when you zoom even further out across all of those changes, for the domain experts, the engineers, the platform and IT teams, even farther than that, the real meta shift starts coming into focus as well. Because none of this is just about moving faster, though that's awesome. It's about changing the feel of work itself. Most of us didn't get into this field because we love juggling JIRA tickets or chasing down permissioning errors. We got into this field because solving problems is satisfying. There's something deeply rewarding about untangling something really complex and turning it into something elegant and useful. There's nothing quite like being the person to find the last piece of the puzzle and slot it exactly into place. That's exciting. That's what keeps us going. And too often, the work we do is hard in all the wrong ways. What this shift does is strip away so much of that friction for us. So the challenge that's left, the hard things for us, those are the fun things, the interesting things. Those are the challenges we actually want to use our brains to solve. We get to understand the problem and shape the outcome, not spend all of our energy like wrestling things out of the way. When every team gets to work that way, and every builder gets to work that way, focused on solving the right problems instead of mashing through the constraints, the chaos and the potential chaos of AI can turn into a structured engine for innovation, where teams, all teams, get to move beyond just firefighting to leverage governance and scale their impact. None of this today is about any single feature. It's a shift in how software comes to life inside your organization. Now the gap between idea and production-grade software has collapsed because the foundations that once came last, holding teams back from ever finding the real utility of what they're trying to build, those are now built in from the start. And if we think about it, building first and governing later never really made sense, did it? Governance is how you build now. So small sparks of innovation, a faster path to action here, a smoother handoff there, all of that can add up to the real transformation we've been talking about across your teams, your projects, and your companies.
And it is the new standard for enterprise development. This is how you finally get ahead of shadow IT, when you're not fighting it anymore. You're channeling it into governed paths.
This is how you improve your return on technology spend. Every dollar you've invested in your data platform, your security infrastructure, your compliance framework, that gets multiplied tenfold across every app and automation that your teams build. Every solution your team ships is ready for real use. It's compliant, deployable, and most importantly, it's all built to endure.
This is how you create an organization that can respond to market changes not in quarters, but at the speed of thought, of insight. Because your teams can build the software they need without waiting for external vendors or internal backlogs.
This is how you create sustainable velocity. The companies that win in the next decade or so are going to be the ones who can turn those business insights into working software safely, quickly, and consistently. When we do that, teams get freed up for higher value work, the creative work, their strategic work, the work that actually moves things forward, moves businesses forward, moves ideas forward, rather than just keeping the lights on.
And this is how enterprises become intelligent, adaptive ecosystems, where software gets built and it doesn't just exist in random areas. It continually improves and evolves into compounding returns. And that's the hope that we want to leave you with today. A way for progress and innovation to finally stick. That's what Enterprise AppGen delivers.
And the best part is, the future we're talking about is available now for all customers. This is Enterprise AppGen.
And we can't, whoa, not yet. Keep it though, because we can't wait to see what you build. What problems you solve, what innovations you ship. Now, thank you.
Thank you.